Okay, we can go ahead and get started. I know others will be joining, but we will get started for those watching the stream, and I have some others soon, hopefully. So welcome to another town hall. And let's see, Ben, are you able to help with notes today?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, thanks. All right, so take a look at action items first. Ben and Bob have been working on a report for our annual donors. Might be nice to share that draft, I guess. Let's see, Ben, report. There we go. So the latest version is looking like this. Ben, you want to kind of tell people about this?
Sure. For an annual report, we needed a one-page summary. So I pulled together some of the statistics with help from Jeremy and Bob and Evan and John. And looking into the data that we have, it's definitely, I think it's an outline that we can follow in the future, and the numbers will get more and more accurate. But it is a good reminder that getting in more information, continues to be a challenge, but it's an important one. So what we ended up doing was we had some data and projections from the Goldman Sachs proposal. I used some of that, and also we ended up with these bottom third averages. So for some of the numbers that we're pretty confident that, the 10 chapter spotlights are pretty, there's a couple large chapters in there that are really active compared to, some of the other smaller chapters. So the numbers are really shifted, if we try to do projections based on that. So the bottom third average is basically an average of an average. It's looking at, this number in between the biggest and the smallest, and then averaging that again with the low side to get the bottom third. And that seems like a much more conservative place to do some of these projections for now. So that's what we settled on. I thought that was a good solution for, again, limited data that we have.
Well, it looks really nice. Nice job. And thanks for putting that together. So sure. Go ahead and cross that one off. Bob and I still need to have a session about just talking about the process for animal prosthetics. That's going to be a while. He's in the middle of a move, which is why he's not able to join us today. And so I think his action items here, as far as reaching out to veterinarians and other volunteers, those are going to be out probably in November. So we're just going to leave those here for now. But John, update us on your discussions with Prashant or the folks at Maker's Asylum.
Yes, I haven't heard from Prashant, and it's even possible I didn't write to him. But I did write to Vaibhav at Maker's Asylum, which is becoming quite a global presence, and he's very enthusiastic about this. So we should figure out how to get them and what I think is their network of fab labs in India into the program. I'm not really sure how to do that. I could simply invite them to connect up and et cetera, but they're big enough players, and it's an important enough thing that we might want to use it to think about some sort of an partner onboarding process.
Mm-hmm. Well, it might be that the easiest way to approach that is just to get a meeting with Vaibhav and just have some discussion about how we might approach this, because we'd need a better understanding of kind of what resources are available on their side. Somebody, and it might be him, would need to sort of take leadership and kind of get the full training, and because it's not just the printing. Hopefully it's working with recipients and fitting and customization and all that good stuff. So if we could train him or some leader in their community who would then disseminate information, that sort of thing, that might work. But I think a meeting with him would probably be the first step, right?
I agree. All right, I'll take that step.
Great. So why don't I change this one to coordinate a meeting with by, I'm sure I'm going to spell this wrong. Is that anywhere close?
It's exactly right.
Oh, wow. Okay. So on we go. I don't have any special presentations on the agenda. So this is just a reminder that we got lots of people out there that are fully qualified to give a presentation in these weekly sessions. Please take us up on that offer. There's so much great work going on out there. This doesn't need to be a big thing. Just pop on in here, tell us about what you're doing, maybe show some photos. That's it. Doesn't need to take any big preparation. It's just want to highlight your work. So please let us know if you'd like to do that, or just jump in.
For all of those live viewers who are heartbroken that there isn't a presentation during today's town hall meeting, we have a focus follow-up today at 1 o'clock Eastern. That's a little less than 2 hours from now, where Allie Elliott, with the able assistance of Kevin Dardick, I think will be presenting about, hello, there she is, about the upcoming educational e-NABLE conference that she is organizing. So that's just a preview, unless, Allie, you plan to actually give a presentation here now. I think you did not, correct? All right, then.
Just a
not
quick
yet.
heads up. If you look at the chat too, there's a message from Alexander. So at the end, you might have something to share.
Short presentation for the Lumia work. Oh, okay, great. So let's see how time goes, Alexander, and maybe we will get to that towards the end. I think it'll probably be fine. So let's go on, take a quick look at our metrics. I don't think there was anything that really stood out for this week. Pretty typical levels of activity, so we don't need to really spend a lot of time here, I don't think, but they're in here if anyone wants to peruse those. I think we already covered the one coming up today, which is the focus follow-up, but here's a summary of our recurring meetings right now. So we've got educational meetups on the first Mondays of the month, chapter leaders meetups on the second Monday of each month, device pilots on the third Monday of each month. Those are all at 12 Eastern. And then we've got the new member meetups on the third Friday and the focus follow-ups on the fourth Friday. Those are both at 1 Eastern. And so we've got that focus follow-up today. That'll be about the educational conference we have coming up in November. And you can always check out our hub calendar to see other events. And we've got that nice new widget now. So if you're in the main forum, you'll see the next sort of 5 or 6 upcoming events right there in that widget. Makes it really easy to see what's going on. Okay, one-time events. A couple of these have already passed. Now I was confused on this. October Make, is this the one that was Maker's Asylum, or is that because they had one on the 19th too, right?
Well, as a matter of fact, they did participate in that event in a different session that I wasn't able to attend.
Got it. Okay. Well, how did this event go, John? How was your presentation?
As far as I know, it was good. I talked about e-NABLE as a model and the planet as a target of opportunity for e-NABLE-like organizations to save the Earth.
Awesome. Now, as you know, I'm very interested in this myself, and I did not realize this was happening on that day. Is there a recording?
It was recorded. I don't think the recording has been released yet.
Okay, let me know if you get a copy of that, please.
I will.
Virtual e-NABLECon from e-NABLE Alliance is, as far as I know, ongoing. So it was last weekend and also this upcoming weekend, right?
That is correct. I forgot about it, but it's today and tomorrow, and I believe there were there were some good presentations on the agenda. I attended the FDA's presentation last week, which was quite excellent. But there you go. That's what I know.
Here we go. Day 3 details here and agenda. So this link is in our notes if you want to go through and see what's happening on Saturday and Sunday. Lots of event details here. Drones as e-NABLE League esports. Oh boy, interesting. All right, so if you're interested, check that out.
And a reminder, we would love to have some people attend. I might not. If registration is a challenge, there are student registrations available for $25, and we will pick up the tab.
Yep. Excellent. We just ask you to share anything you learn with the community. Student networking event. This is the one that we'll be talking about in detail an hour from when this meeting ends. So join us for that and hear all about that event on November 20th. And let's see, there's a note here about Allie working with SAFE to plan an afternoon or evening in-person event. Any updates on that, Allie? Is it just something you're still discussing?
That's something we're still discussing.
Okay, very good. All right, on we go to discussion topics. What do we have for today? Let's see, recent news and media. I just put this in here because I just saw an article from Creality featuring Mao 3D, who is a group that we know, led by Dr. Maria Elizette Kunkel. No mention of e-NABLE in the article, which is not unusual, but you know, their website does talk about their roots coming from e-NABLE and the Team Unlimited, so that's nice. But it was a nice article about the work they're doing, and just nice to see. So I just wanted to point that out. Anyone else see anything? I just thought it might be nice to highlight some of these things each week. Has anybody else seen anything this week as far as articles or media that might be worth sharing?
No, I think we've talked about this, but Kyle Reeser, who was an intern with us and who was funded to both develop a 3D printer in a suitcase, which 3D printer in a suitcase is now in my possession and available to be deployed, and also to go to Africa. And he went to Tanzania as well as Rwanda, and did some 3D printing work with a prosthetist there. And by the way, last I heard, that prosthetist was interested in additional interns. Kyle Reeser, about whom I am digressing, is now Creality's international ambassador and is going to Africa and hopes to visit each continent to talk about and to contribute to interesting projects involving 3D printers. And he's receptive to ideas for what places to go and projects to support, including e-NABLE projects. And he's even suggested that he might like to include Ben or me on one of his junkets. So he's riding high. He also just, by the way, got a really nice job with Bausch and Lomb here in Rochester, which will still allow him to engage in these other activities, including activities in 3D bioprinting. Which is to say, Kyle Reeser, e-NABLE intern from 2020 or 2019, is carrying the flag ably with our assistance and many connections we helped him make, because he got his Creality position because they read an article about his Creality printer in a suitcase and his activities in Africa. Your e-NABLE fund money's at work. The end.
Indeed. Yeah. Anyone else have anything to share? Okay, on we go. So fundraising. I actually had something I wanted to bring up here. I had a really interesting discussion a couple of days ago with a gentleman. I don't know if any of you have talked to him. His name is Eric. I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this right. Lamoureux, I believe, is the last name. And he's the president of a group called Island Mission Sports. But basically, he and his, as far as I could gather, he and his wife live on a boat. They've lived on a boat for 35 years. It's a, I think he said it's a 35-foot or 45-foot sailboat, a large boat. And they are currently off the coast of Guatemala. And they have gotten involved through a long chain of events they learned about our work, got himself a 3D printer, and he's been making devices and has been finding that there is a lot of need in a lot of areas down there. And he rattled off 6 or 7 countries that I can't remember: Guatemala, Belize, and I can't remember several others that don't, as far as he can see, don't have e-NABLE representation. And he has this really interesting ability where he can literally float around different ports and get different areas that are very hard to get to. And he actually has a partner that he's working with in Guatemala who, of course, is native and speaks the language. And he's finding that's very important because there's a lot of sort of resistance to outsiders in some of these areas. And there's been a lot of broken promises and that sort of thing. So there's some trust factors. And so having this partner on the inside has been very helpful. Anyway, he's looking to expand operations. He can't keep up with demand. He needs another printer, and he needs something that's going to be larger and a little bit more reliable. Through a lot of discussion, we talked about maybe something like an Ultimaker S5 being a good option for him. It's we'll give him everything that he needs. In his environment, climate control is a major issue. Lots of humidity and temperature issues. So we really need something that's more enclosed. And anyway, so he's on board, really wants to move forward, but he has to get funding. He's going to have to basically go do some kind of a GoFundMe or something like that to try to raise the money. And I said, listen, I really like the sound of what you're doing. I mean, it sounds like you're really addressing an important need, and you have some very unique capabilities in the way that you're mobile and can get around to these different areas and serve these different communities. I don't have the authority to make any commitments, but let me talk to the group and see if there's some way we could work with you on the funding. Maybe you could do some fundraising and we could do some matching of that fundraising from our e-NABLE fund. I just said, I'm not promising anything, but that's something that we can talk about. So I wanted to bring this up for discussion here, just because I think these guys, he really seems like he's very committed. They've already been engaged in doing this work. He's a very capable, engineering type, very hands-on, knows, how to make all kinds of things. And so he can handle even the less standard types of cases. And I don't know, like I said, he seems to be able to get into a lot of areas that aren't currently being served. He said that there's one mother that has a child that when he told her that he was going to make a device for her kid, she literally screamed because she had been trying for years to get help for him and just couldn't get anyone to help. So really kind of touching stories. And so I'm bringing this to you guys to see what you think about maybe coming up with a way of helping him to get this next printer. I know as a general rule, we've shied away from using the e-NABLE fund to buy printers for people and things like that. I felt like this was a bit of a unique situation. It's work that he's already doing. It's not his first printer. He's just trying to scale up his capacity. And he seems to be serving a really important need. So I wanted to get your thoughts. What do you guys think?
It's a great story. We should have a fleet of e-NABLE sailboats.
Yeah, right.
And he's seeking money just for the Ultimaker, or
That's
more?
all we've talked about. No, all we've talked about is the Ultimaker, which I am authorized to give e-NABLE discounts on Ultimaker products. They've agreed to
Sure.
that, which is it's a 5% discount. So it would end up being just shy of $6,000. It's still a significant expense, but say theoretically he's able to fundraise half of that. And we're looking at matching,
Sure.
so we're looking at maybe a $3,000 ish support for what sounds to me like a really important and impactful program. I don't know.
Now he's a one-off, or is he declaring the Good Ship e-NABLE as a chapter?
We talked about that, and he plans to form a chapter. He's just been too busy. He said as soon as he's able to, he plans to go through that process. For now, he's too busy making devices.
I mean, to me,
I'd
it
love to
seems
have-
like maybe somebody on the ground would, in one of the countries, would probably be like one of these partnering places would probably be a safer place to 3D print, rather than this guy's boat if he's so busy. But
apparently he's already doing it.
Yeah, he's already printing devices.
He's done cases, Jeremy.
Yeah, he just doesn't have enough capacity. He needs to be able to print more parts, and what he's doing is mostly arms, and his current printer isn't big enough to print, the unlimited arm, the main pieces. It's a large piece, so he needs something with a bigger print bed so that he can do more of the arms without having to break things into pieces and all that.
Well, there's no question that he or you could submit a proposal to the e-NABLE fund.
That's right.
And the community, like me, I think would embrace it just because it's so damn cool, and it reaches probably people on the fringe, literally, who might otherwise not be reached.
Well, yeah. So you bring up a good point, John, because I was just thinking about how to approach this, and now that you mention it, this is over the $1,000 threshold, so it's not something we could approve here. He's not a chapter, so we really can't put him through the Wishbone program. So yeah, really the Lumio process, I think, is the way to go here, right?
There's no reason not to do that. And
Yeah.
I think it's nice. In fact, I think if he threw in a few pictures, and I would love for him to make, I mean, for example, if he tried to set an example by promising to report on cases,
Mhm.
that would be huge, because no one is obligated to report on cases, and as a result, no one does report on cases. But frankly, having one story like this after another with photos would be really a great thing for us.
That's a good point. Okay. Well, that gives me what I need to go back and have a discussion with him. Let me talk to him about that. I think what I'll do is I will offer to work with him on putting together a proposal to help him through that process. And I will discuss what you said, John. I think I like that idea of tying in the commitments to share the work. And I'll talk to him about the photo releases and all that we can share with him. And I think that's a good approach. So I will talk to him about that. And I think he'll
That's
be
great.
on board. Yeah, he was really
That
excited.
does open, and I think that appropriately opens the door to other chapter-specific proposals like that, linked to what I think is a really good concept of obligatory reporting as a condition. I'm not putting a policy in place. I'm just saying that it seems to fit his case, and it's actually a general program that might be an interesting way for us to get more movement through the e-NABLE fund and improve our reporting,
Data
which is
collection,
our
yeah.
weakest link.
Yeah. Okay. I'll follow up with him.
Cool.
Just gonna move this down here. So that's Island Mission Sports. And I will talk to him and let you guys know where that goes. I haven't heard any updates from Saif, but she is working towards a grant from Amazon. John, have you heard anything, or anyone else? Ben?
No,
anyone
she
heard
did
anything?
submit it. She
Oh,
appreciated
great.
our contribution.
So she's waiting to hear.
Yeah, and that'll take
Okay.
a while.
All right, we have just shy of $30,000 in the e-NABLE fund right now. We know that we have 2 multi-year commitment anniversaries coming up, so there will be some additional funding coming in. It's a great time to submit your projects and initiatives, so let's take advantage of that, make some stuff happen. Giving Tuesday, November 30th, we wanted to come up with something that could encourage people to donate. And I think we have a really good tool now with the one pager that Ben and Bob put together. I guess it was mostly Ben. I don't know who is involved to what extent, but that one pager I think is a really nice way of showing, hey, look what we've been able to do with funding that we've received previously, and maybe use that as a way of encouraging others to support us. Now, what do you guys think? Is that a matter of just using that one pager in its current form, or is this like a different version that we put together for Giving Tuesday?
Well, Giving Tuesday is usually, I think it's specifically a Facebook institution, although it's spread. And
Okay.
so one puts up a little fundraiser thing, and then off it goes. So I don't.
So is that something that we can do like on the e-NABLE Facebook, the main e-NABLE Facebook page? Is that something that can be set up through that?
It
Okay.
is. You need a nonprofit. I've used Rochester e-NABLE in the past, but I have used it for the e-NABLE fund. So yeah, we have the permissions we need to do that.
Okay. I know I'm an admin on that Facebook page, so let me go in and look and see if it's obvious how to set that up. And I think I have the EIN number for Rochester, but I'll get in touch with you, John, if I need that.
Great.
Okay, great. So then and then Ben, I'll probably need if I can get in and figure out how to do it, I'll need your help in the content, what to put up there.
Right. I think what we can do is take that one pager and divide it. There's 3 sections in that one pager. Each of those sections could be a separate post with a big photo on top. So have a photo banner, 3 posts, bing, bing, bing. We could do 1 a week starting, let's see, when is it? November 30th. So maybe starting the first week of November, every week we have a post as a reminder. And then at the end, we can hopefully get some folks to contribute.
Let me put a note up here under action items then for myself. Whoops. Set up Giving Tuesday fundraiser on Facebook. Okay. All right. On we go. I don't have anything to report on animal prosthetics because we don't have Bob today. Does anybody else have anything to share here? Otherwise, we'll skip it. All right, I didn't think so. Bob's working on that. I know there's a lot going on, but he's in the middle of a big move, so he won't be able to attend these meetings for a little while. Other case related, again, this case here is something that Bob's working on, so we'll get an update from him later. We did send off this custom device we worked on for our friend Bishnu, but we are waiting for a meeting to be scheduled to kind of see how the fitting works and get feedback. So nothing further to report there. Does anybody else have anything not on our list here? Anybody working on any cases that you need help with or wanted to talk about or give updates on?
What's the item there that says post about pulling together related cases?
That was just something that Ben had shared a while back about it's sort of a bunch of different people that were working on sort of custom type,
Oh, nice.
Non-standard type cases and looking at whether we might be able to pull
Got it.
from those and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Great. Great.
There was a case that was posted in Facebook, or not Facebook, in the hub.
Yeah, I
there's
think I saw
a
that one.
student master's project.
Diego, right? I think it was Diego. Yeah, there he is.
So
Yeah, I
might
was
be
just looking
something
at
for
that this
Alexander to
morning.
follow up on, just in terms of, student initiatives. It's a lot of work that he put into it.
Yeah, he shared videos here and photos, and he said, I noticed down here, he said he's working on writing up a full document, and he'll be sharing that in the hub. So that'll be really helpful to read through the whole process of what he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks great though. So that's here in the hub. All right. Outreach and partnerships. Let's see here. We already kind of talked about the Makers Asylum stuff. We're going to get a meeting going with Vaibhav there. Let's see. We were talking about, what was this, Tools for the Blind? We talked about, this was something that John brought up as a possible partnering opportunity, right, John?
That's right.
This from you?
And I can also report that there's a group
Did I lose
applying
your audio,
for.
John?
Say what? Can you hear
I
me?
lose everyone's audio.
Did you lose my audio?
I can hear you, John.
I can hear you too.
Sorry. Yes, that is an interesting group. And there's another group which is organizing for some sort of an online resource for assistive technologies, being led by Makers Making, the Canadian group that Chad Lehman organizes. Anyway, I'm monitoring that and it may develop something. But there's the possibility of a much larger than 3D printed prosthetics online platform that could somehow include us. So I'm keeping an eye on that.
All right. Let's see. I guess on the topic of outreach and partnerships, I guess.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Amputee Coalition. I don't think we quite closed the book on that.
Great.
Allison and Alexander attended some of the meetings, maybe also Kevin. I'm sorry, Kevin. And
yeah, no, I know Alexander wrote up a detailed report that we haven't gone through in detail yet. And I don't think we have time to go through that in detail today, but maybe we can get some sort of summary, highlights from each of you, things that were of particular interest.
Well, I can frame it a little bit. I know that both of them took some notes. I think they made some contacts. Alexander in particular saw a vast array of opportunities for outreach and collaboration, but he cleverly realized that actually pursuing all of those is a major job in itself. This suggests again that someone who really wanted to focus on outreach to other institutions would be a really good person to add to the regular team of interns or responsible contractors like Ben and Alexander. But
Yeah.
frankly, until that happens, we are going, I predict, we're going to continue to not do as good a job as we might organizationally on systematic outreach, both to, to amputees and amputee organizations.
Right.
That's just one of our current limitations, but that's the update. Alexander did write up some notes, and they should be shared on the hub. But that's the story.
Okay.
And Alexander confirms that he's still thinking how to approach that issue. And we can talk about the further details offline, Alexander.
Sure. Allie, anything you wanted to share from the event? Just anything in particular stood out?
Yeah, I mean, we did have some conversations about maybe holding an event for anybody who's interested in e-NABLE who isn't already associated. So more of just like an info session about what e-NABLE is, how to get involved, like pathways moving forward. So if we wanted to do that, we could definitely pursue that.
That's a good idea.
However,
Eric would be very reusable.
Right. However, Eric Bubar did, I forgot about this, he gave a full, I think, hour presentation, and Allie attended. So can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, he explained kind of like what he's been doing as well as what e-NABLE does. It seemed like a lot of the people who were participating and watching and chatting in questions were asking about like more specialty devices for like paddleboarding, for example, which apparently he has like worked on in the past. So it seemed like a really great opportunity for people to get to know what e-NABLE is and the potential there and like the specialization that could take place through these relationships.
Well, that's great.
So it was really valuable.
In our disorganized and distributed fashion, we were well represented at the Amputee Coalition. And in some ways, if they know to reach out to him, that's a great thing.
It is. Yeah, Eric always does great work. Okay. Let's see. Anything else to talk about on outreach? No? Okay, we'll move on. On the infrastructure stuff, the only thing I think I have to talk about is I'm still a little bit stuck on the testing of this new platform from our friends in France. I have all the files now, but I'm struggling to figure out how to get those ported into an instance of WordPress, because I'm not on just a plain server, it's a hosted environment. So I have full access to the WP content folder, but not some of the other system folders. And so the files that they share don't quite line up. And I need somebody that's more of a systems expert, WordPress expert, that can kind of help figure out what files to put where and get this working. I'm trying to kind of go with the support team from the hosting place I used to kind of figure it out, but I haven't gotten the details I need so far. So if anybody happens to have that kind of skill set.
we can't get a session with Thierry's developer?
Possibly. I don't know. I was hesitant to ask. It sounded like they were awfully busy, but if I can't find another option, I'll have to see if that's a possibility.
That all has to do with the kind of stuff that Masvi is good at. He's not a WordPress expert, but he knows all about directories and installation and SQL and that kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I think the whole issue here is WordPress specific, because it's just a matter of where to put those WordPress files. I have the mechanism to import the database that they provided. So I don't know. I think I need somebody that specifically has done a lot of systems admin for WordPress and knows kind of all about their file structure and stuff. Anyway, I'm
Jeremy,
figuring that out.
I'm sorry, one other note. There is a vast network of WordPress competent contractors. And you could find one.
That's true. Yeah, haven't gone to that step yet, but that might be an option too. All right. Well, slow progress, but at least we have the files, and hopefully we'll be able to get it up and start playing with it soon. I'll report back later. Nothing else to report on. Yeah.
I'm sorry. One other avenue there. So Zainab is either in the same situation as you, or she solved that problem. So you could check with her.
I got the impression that she wasn't ready to try to even deploy it yet. She was going to first get set up on their platform as a user and take some cases that way. So I don't think she's even tried to set this up yet.
Got it.
All right. I don't think there's anything to talk about with technical stuff today, unless anybody else has anything. Anyone have any new experience to share with 3D scanning or CAD or any kind of other software, hardware tools?
And that might
No.
be a good segue to the topic that Alexander wants to discuss.
Might be. Yeah. I guess that's, I had that more under, where was that? Oh, I guess that would have been here under the hub. Why don't we talk about that here since we were just there under infrastructure? So yeah, Alexander, Alexander's been, as some of you may already know, we did approve a Lumio project proposal, which involves some reorganization and redesign of our e-NABLE devices catalog. And the first phase of that project has essentially been completed. So Alexander, I think you wanted to give us a bit of a report on that. Are you ready to do that?
Yeah, sure. Let me open it up. Let's see. I'm going to share this screen. Just a second. How do I? Well, there it is.
We're seeing, yep, we're seeing it now.
Right. So let's see what we have in here. So we have the overview. Basically, the project was supposed to upgrade and update the device list because currently it's just a text list. Update the device description because it's simply not engineering friendly as it should be. Create a device template in the process and create spaces for future development of those devices and for future modifications and so on. So let's see, for part one, in practice, it was to create a template for the old style of pages, use it to create pages for some of the unimplemented new pages that I received from Jeremy. Also part of part one, create a list for engineering data and check with people on the hub and create a new device template. For part two, it's supposed to be design and implement the new device list and implement some of the main devices using the new template. And part three would deal with setting up spaces, workflows of how to add future modifications to everything. And the current state, as Jeremy said, is that I have pretty much finished the first part. And here I can actually showcase it. So we have the old page template. Let me see where it is. Right. So this is the old page template. Can you see my Zoom bar or can you see just my screen?
Oh, we're just seeing the screen.
All right, perfect. So this is the old page template, which is just an extraction of the Phoenix V3. Then we have the list with engineering data that I've made, and I've already put everything into the new template. These are some of the checkpoints that I had to cross. This is how the list is looking right now, and this is what I've managed to create for the list. Of course, this would have the same categories and an index of all the categories in here. These are just the replacement photos, but this is how I envision it would look.
So it looks beautiful, but why don't you slow down on this page and just scroll through it and tell us about the features of that new design, template design. So it's
right. So let me find, I've linked in here the new template where it is. There we go.
But that uses the new template, right?
I've only implemented Phoenix V3 with the new template.
Let me clarify. There's two different levels of pages here that we're looking at in the wiki. What you're looking at right now is a category level page. So at the category level, what you're going to see is a grid view of photos like you're seeing here. We've just never used the content section at the top of the category level. Once you click into one of these, you'll be at a page level view, and that is where the new template comes into play. So what you're looking at here is is just a new element that's been brought in. So if you scroll down, Alexander, and you'll see at the bottom, see there's the pages in this category. All we were doing before is we had the categories and the subpages, but we didn't have any actual content in the category level pages. So now when you click on a category like hand designs, you'll see something like what he's showing up above here. You'll see all these images of our hand designs. And when you click into one of those, that'll take you to the new detail page. So now let's look at that new detail page template that you have.
Right. So this is much, much longer than before. Of course, I had to add the page index because otherwise it would be impossible to navigate on this page.
You know what,
And
Alexander, didn't you do one as a sample? It might be better to look at that sample that has the images and everything.
yep, I have, no, this is the old V3 and this is the new one.
There we go. Now let's go through this.
So we have the index with 5 basic parts. We have the basic description, the makers oriented section, students and education oriented, engineers oriented, and a lot of stats, links, and other lists. John, you wanted to say something?
I said I'd like you to click on 2, 3, 4, and 5 just so we can make the jumps.
Let's go through each one. Let's start at 1.
Sadly, the page index doesn't scroll down as you scroll down.
Oh, that's
yeah, well,
right. We
that's
talked
true.
about that before. That's okay. So let's go through in order, Alexander. Let's start it. Let's go scroll down and let's go through each section.
Right. So firstly, it begins with an isometric view that's going to be pasted in here as well. I was thinking that we can have an isometric render in order to make it really obvious what the differences are between various devices. So the same exact view, the same exact set of colors, and so on. Then we have the basic description with what we already have with the icons for basic statistics. And I thought to add basic data like the number of parts, assembly time estimations, what parts need to be purchased from otherwise, the grip type, and the number of known builds. Some of this we already have, or we can deduce from the statistics that we have.
Let's pause here and talk about the fact that we're going to try to take an approach of getting the community involved in helping us to gather some of this data. And that's why you see those red dots there. Those are going to be replaced with some new little badge icons. We're going to create a new badge for those people that help us to fill in some of the missing data points that we need on these pages. And so you'll see these little symbols throughout these pages that indicate opportunities for the community to help fill in the blanks. And when you do that, you'll be able to earn this new badge. And so that's what those red dots represent for now. Those are placeholders for that.
Yeah, because part of what this project does is highlight all the areas where we need the community to come in and help us with understanding our own devices, really, and testing them and getting more data. And this is an occasion for the community to help besides just 3D printing basic things. We have the basic description, which should contain, for example, a short version of the license. Currently, that's something that I don't have.
Just so you know, Alexander, as you're going through these, you can always get the license from Thingiverse. Most of these designs are on Thingiverse. And if you just click through to the Thingiverse page, it shows what license they selected there.
All right. Then we have the for makers part. This would contain a picture of the already made device, a bill of materials, estimations. These are all data that a maker that wants to make this, or a chapter that wants to approach making a bunch of these, they actually need this. Cost per device, for example, is really relevant when you want to make something like 20 cases at the same time.
Well, that's a good point.
It allows the
Alexander.
makers to scale up their work.
Something that we need to think about, because this is the reason that we started offering kits in the first place through my company, is if you try to go out and buy the materials to make a device, your cost per device is going to be much higher because you can't buy materials just in the quantities you need. If you buy materials to make 100 devices, your cost per device is going to be much less. So the cost per device is going to depend on what volume of materials you're buying at once and how many devices you're making. So just
and that can be specified.
We might have to break that out.
Well, and for that matter, once you've broken it out, a line for kit available would be helpful, and would not be unwelcome advertisement for 3D Universe, which is selling these at a good price anyway.
Yeah, and that's in the current design. I don't know if that was removed, but currently there is an indication of when there's a kit available and a link to those kits.
Right, I think that's down in the list, but yes, it should be placed in here as well. Also in the maker side, there is a reasoning behind why this particular device and what makes it different from other devices. Because each of our devices approaches not just a general problem, but also differ in how they approach that problem. And that makes it relevant for particular cases.
Mm-hmm.
Right, then we have part 3 for education. And this is aimed at getting as much data as possible that the teachers can use to make various presentations. And also this should contain lists of tasks that can be completed from the education sector. So for example, for Boy Scouts, which was quite often requested. Of course, the list would be hosted down in part 5. But here it should contain various tutorials and various other data. Then we have my favorite, of course, the engineer side, which should contain an exploded view and a mechanical view such as this one. And a heck of a lot of engineering specs. And this is oriented to make the engineers feel at home, especially the mechanical and the CAD engineers, because just through text, it should be able to explain all the particularities of how this device works and how this device is designed. And of course, over here, we have a lot of unknowns simply because I think some of them have never been measured because this wasn't made as an engineering project. This was probably made as a Blender project by an artist. So once we get these things down, it will be more of a proper engineering product. Right, we have, this is a placeholder, we need a proper exploded view. And the engineers can also submit possible experiments that we would need to do for this device to get more data on it. Also a list of requested modifications, because for an engineer or a CAD user, it takes maybe 10 minutes to remove, for example, the thumb or the pinky finger, which for unexperienced CAD users, it can easily take days. So we can also paste the modifications in here, and we have a special section for the modified files. And then we have part 5, which is, well, basically all the crazy lists that should be going in here. Beginning with the STL files, the major modifications, the source files, which we currently have in Fusion 360 for Phoenix V3. Then we have a list of instructions and video tutorials. I should probably move the materials kit upstairs to the maker section. And then we have various lists. And for the list, for every single list, everybody is welcome to submit comments down here, and we can add them in the list. For example, the list of known issues or modifications that you would like to see next. And that is how the community can interact with these pages. Then an admin would be checking them out and pasting them in the link. Sorry?
And they can interact with each other in the context of this particular device, which is great.
Yeah. And then the last section is the credit and license. Sorry?
One other thing we had talked about, I think it would go under the credit and license section right at the bottom. I think it would be nice if we added something like contributions from. And then I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about the countries. So there would be a section down there where if people from the US and the UK and, you know, Afghanistan and Australia were involved, then those flags would all appear at the bottom. It just might be nice to show all the different kind of countries, something to show these international collaborations that are happening, and encourage more of that would be nice.
Well, there we go.
Looking good.
It's great, Alexander. So this represents the completion of phase 1, which by the way, Alexander then submitted an invoice to our system, and with Evan's speedy help, he got paid internationally within a day or so. So that's all working well. So that's great.
Yep.
So now you're going to tell us about what's coming next?
Coming next should be making that, polishing that device list until it's ready to be deployed. And technically, most of part 3 is already done. I have to check the workflows because the spaces for modifications and for every single list is right here down in part 5. If these lists become so big and we get that much community feedback, it will be moved to a separate space.
That's not going to be
But
our
until that
problem.
happens, it can be hosted right here.
Our problem is always the opposite, Alexander. It's going to be a lack of community participation that will be the issue. And so my only concern is that if we roll this out currently, if you just move forward and start replacing all the pages in the catalog with a new template, what we're going to end up with is every page is going to be 75% blanks with all these icons that need to be filled in. Now, maybe that's okay.
Isn't that a good thing?
That's what I'm asking. I'm not so sure. People need to be able to find the information that they do need, that we do have, and I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost in a sea of unknowns that we're highlighting. You know what I mean? So maybe there's, maybe it's a matter of putting the stuff that you have at the bottom, because section 5, where you have all the links and downloads and tutorials, and that's really the stuff that most people, if they just want to make a hand and they kind of already know what they're getting into, it's really those links that they need. So maybe that stuff goes at the top or something.
It's linked in the page index, and I suppose I can put a link down here within part 1. So within the basic description, a link that jumps you right down there to the STL files and everything.
Yeah, files and tutorials go here. And then if you don't mind, I'd like to have an opportunity to go through with you and just do some final, tweaking on the template before that starts to get applied to other pages, just checking wording and capitalization, stuff like that, just to make sure everything is as polished as it can be, and then you can go ahead and start rolling that out to as many of the pages as you can.
Yep.
I have a question about that. Are these templates in the sense that you can tweak the template file and then all of the pages that use the template file are automatically changed?
No.
Each
It's a
page
page
is
that I have to
separate.
copy
It's
and
just a
paste
wiki.
and then fill in.
Yeah, it's a wiki.
It's a wiki, but it's PHP, but I guess we don't have that power.
No,
Okay.
we don't have any access to the behind the scenes of the wiki. It's pretty limited.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually to use the template, you would just copy paste the entire page and then you start filling in the blanks right here. This is how the template currently looks.
John's got a good point that while it's a big improvement, it is something where we're going to have a lot of manual work to do, and it really might be worth bringing MASB into the conversation just to see if there's some sort of a facilitated way we can do this to change lots of information at once.
It's true, even though we don't have the utility built into the wiki, MASB might well be able to write a script that would splice the template and the appropriate column in a spreadsheet into a bunch of markdown, which could then be pasted or injected into the wiki thing. I would urge you to do a consult with him.
Okay.
I think he'll be impressed with the work that you're doing anyways and be sort of excited about it. But it is one of those things just from, modeling different processes with e-NABLE and then being stuck with the manual work afterwards that can really be overwhelming, worth considering beforehand.
I'm not following this. Alexander's not going to be stuck with the work. It's the whole point here is that those little symbols are opportunities for the community to fill in those blanks. All Alexander is doing is copying and pasting. He's going to copy
Yeah,
and paste the
but-
template into the existing pages and move the details around that we have.
Right, that's not the point. The point is there are going to be 40 some entries. You know, there are going to be all of these devices. And should we wish to change the template, you would then have to modify all 40 pages.
Yeah.
Whereas we might well like to be able to just update the template and have all 40 pages be programmatically updated.
It would be great. I just don't know if it's realistic to do that in a way that could. I mean, my feeling is that if Alexander moved ahead with the approach that he had planned, we could have this rolled out in a matter of weeks. If we try to go the route of doing something custom like we're talking about, this is going to be months out at best, but we can certainly explore it and see what MASV says. I think that might drag things out.
Well,
pretty significant effort.
That's a great argument. Let me ask this though. Do you have the data in some kind of tabular table form, Alex?
No,
That would
no,
probably
because I haven't created that data.
Okay, but
That might not be a bad idea.
creating that as an intermediate to the copy paste or to the scripting is a really good idea, because that would allow the possibility that we could put in place that if MASV can't say, oh, that's easy, and he might be able to, Jeremy, that it keeps open the possibility that later we start generating this stuff programmatically and being able to update it, not by editing a wiki page, but just by updating or adding a row to the table.
Yeah, there's no question it's doable. It's I can see exactly how that would be done. It's a question of whether MASV has time to do something like that. If you can have a discussion with him, that would be great. Having the data in a structured format, regardless of whether we can do that coding automation, is probably a good idea. So Alexander, you might want to just think about setting up a Google Sheet. And I suggest a Google Sheet specifically because I know that they have an API that makes it very easy to access Google Sheet data by code. So later on, if MASV is up for doing that, we can easily do it. But either way, you would have all of that data in a spreadsheet, which would be useful regardless, I think.
Yep. All right. That's easy enough to do, because all of these things, most of the text is technically text from the template.
Yeah.
Cool.
Right.
Who's going to do that? I don't know if I was clear. Who is going to try to reach out to MASV to have that discussion? Is that Alexander? Or are you going to try to make contact with him?
Well, I think, Jeremy, you've identified the critical issue. Put it in a standard format. And then if we have time and MASV has time, we can broker that conversation. But frankly, creating that intermediate spreadsheet addresses my concern without slowing us down. I think it'll speed Alexander up.
All right.
Got it. Okay. And Alexander, just a thought, if you create a spreadsheet that has all of the layout, all these data points as rows and column headers, and you maybe fill in the first couple, that's an opportunity to have somebody else in the community help. There's no reason you need to sit there and do all that copy and pasting. And we can maybe find somebody else that can go through all of the existing pages and pull the data points that we do already have into the spreadsheet then for all the existing designs. Then you can maybe go in for a second pass and fill in some of those engineering data points that maybe you do know about. Just food for thought. You don't need to do all that yourself.
I'll see how the workload actually, how big the workload is. It might be the case that it's easier for me to just do it all in one go.
I hear you.
I do want to mention that I want to standardize the device size. And this is both within files and within the engineering specs.
Yeah,
because the engineering specifics need certain numbers that need to be exact.
No, I understand why you want to do it. The problem is we don't own these designs, Alexander. Each individual designer owns the design. So to do this, you would have to go to each designer and say, hey, will you please change the default scale of your design as follows? And most of them are not going to do that because they already have, they've got a whole workflow and process where they've been producing that
then
design,
I can modify them myself.
That's up to you. I'm just saying that it complicates things a little bit because now you're going to have two different versions of the design. One of them is, let's use the kinetic hand for an example. The kinetic hand is a drastically different scaling than all of our other designs. If you go and you take it and you make it a different scale, his beautiful documentation is no longer going to work. It's all based around his scaling and how to work from that. So just, there's a lot to think about on that. I love the idea. Doing it is going to be quite challenging.
So basically we have a choice for most of the hands. It's a choice between either having engineering specs that are standard or having the old documentation.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, I'm not
So
sure. I do
basically with the current device sizes, the way I understand it, we have documentation for that particular device size, right?
Best case, not always, but most of our designs have some documentation.
If I go ahead and standardize them, then the old documentation is next to useless.
It's less useful.
No, that's true. People will stumble if they're not
It will
synced up.
create confusion, yes.
But it would create the engineering standardization that's needed for all the statistics. So it's a choice between holding on to the documentation or creating the statistics and having to redo the documentation.
I'm not sure I understand why do they all have to be at the same scale? I mean, if you want them to be at the same size, then for the kinetic hand, you use 130% scale or whatever it ends up being so that it equals 100% scale for the other designs. And that way you're comparing apples
Because
to
the whole
apples.
point of the engineering statistics is to have the same framework.
Let's show us what you mean by engineering statistics again.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, this is not even engineering statistics, but for example, for makers, cost per device, what scale is the device?
Well, these are approximations anyway. I mean, that's not gonna, when we talk cost per device, we're saying like $30 to $50. I mean, it's such a range that scale is not gonna matter. Because you have such variability in the cost of materials depending on where you are and where you're buying from. There's
but
so
for
many
example,
variables.
grams or volume of plastic printed.
No, it's negligible, Alexander. It
All
really
right.
is. When you look at all the different materials and the different costs, there's no way you're going to be able to get it accurate enough where the scale starts to really change the estimate. It's just
Then
so different.
we don't really have people that print that many hands to actually matter, do we?
Well, anyone that does kind of already knows what their costs are. So it's going to be unique to their situation and where they're getting their materials from and all that.
We do have the overall weight. So right here, I'm looking at the engineering specs. You might be right, and maybe the standardization doesn't actually help anything. So we do have the overall weight, which would be affected by the size.
Yeah, but that's a good example where you can just say, for all these statistics, we used a scale that would fit a typical size adult. So that would be, 150% scale for most of our designs. It would be 100% for the kinetic hand, that kind of thing. But you pick some size, pick some measurement or some, metric that you can use as a standard. And then that's what you would use across all of this data. So you're saying here, all numerical data is expected at scale 100%. I'm saying don't use a percent scale as that standard. Use something like, all data is based on devices sized for an average adult male or something, or something like that. Pick a size,
right,
as opposed to
and
percentage.
have them standardized just for the engineering side of the
exactly, just for those data points. Yeah,
that's a very good middle ground.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, what
Just
else?
noting it down.
So Alexander, while you're noting, I guess I think you're doing just exactly the right job. And by the way, your presentation, in which you started with an overview and you had pictures, was really excellent. It's
Thank
very
you. I'm
helpful.
starting to learn.
Well, it's true. I salute you. What do you think the timeline is for finishing part 2 and part 3?
Well, wait, let's refresh. What is part 2 and part 3? How do those differ? Clarify that first.
So part 3, according to my initial proposal, is setting up all the spaces and all the lists. And frankly, part 3 is just right now it should be just checking the workflow that the community can actually submit a comment and how the documenting in a small script saying that the admin should check the comments and put them in.
Okay, so phase 2 is where the bulk of the remaining work happens.
Yeah. And
Okay.
phase 2 means having the device list made as a proper device list, not just placeholder pictures, which does mean, for example, rendering the most important devices myself for the isometric
Which means you have to model those devices first. Let's not
Yeah, or
underestimate.
open that particular program in which they were designed.
Yes,
It's gonna be
okay.
fun.
And
Lots
a
of
lot fun,
Blender
yes.
work probably.
So now back to John's question then, as far as timeline.
What else is there to do? And update using the template to update at least the main devices. So let's say there are 10 main devices. If
That you're saying
I
that's part
work
of phase 2?
seriously, sorry.
That's part of phase 2, you're saying, to update the 10 like
Yeah, the
primary
main devices is part of phase 2.
and then updating all of the other sort of less primary devices, is that part of phase 3, or is that you're going to hope others do that, or what's the plan for that?
That is theoretically not part of the scope, but that depends on the timeline.
Okay. All right. So that's something
In
to be aware
theory,
of.
if I am serious enough with the work, it can be done in 2-3 weeks, part 2 and part 3. But I've
Okay.
said
Well,
that
what's
part 1
realistic?
should only take me 1 week, and it's been a month and a half, so who knows?
Well, this is how things go. So let's, with that in mind, knowing that life happens in between, you know, what do you think is realistic? Not putting too much pressure on yourself, because this isn't urgent. We don't need this done next week. I mean, we just want to have a sense of, you know, what's involved in getting this done right. You know, giving yourself a comfortable opportunity to do this without feeling pressured. What do you think?
I'd probably say about a week to finish them and polish them.
You
Sounds
just went from
optimistic to me, but
to 3
okay.
weeks. You just went from two weeks of intense effort to a 1 week estimate. Okay, so this part you haven't.
Wait, I
learned
said
yet.
1
Because-
week? I meant 1 month. What?
Okay, that sounds
Ah.
more
Oh, I said 1
appropriate.
week. Sorry.
You said 1 week. Okay.
I said something and I understood my own words differently.
1 month sounds more appropriate.
Yeah, 1
Okay,
month. That should be decent enough.
sounds
Okay.
good.
So Alexander, remember, you're not being paid by the hour, if I recall. You're being paid by the benchmark.
Exactly,
And
because
you're
I know
doing
myself.
You're doing excellent work. And we have more things we wish to involve you with when you're done with this. So be kind to yourself and to
Oh.
us, and don't fall into any rat holes.
Oh yeah.
All right, we got to get moving. I think he's got some questions and we're running long here. So let's
Yeah,
move
I
on to
want
that
to
next
ask,
slide.
theoretically for one of the categories, I want to at least request in the template to have a picture of a real case and a cosplay case. Difference being that the real case would be something that's made by your average maker volunteer, and the cosplay case would be a particularly finished device.
I think
So
when you say a
it's
cosplay
moved, it
device,
looks like
you're talking about a
product, it looks
themed,
like
you're talking about
not
a
necessarily
themed design,
themed.
right?
Not necessarily themed as much as it looks like a finished product, not just something that you just pulled off a 3D printer. So that means you have to send it down to be smooth. You have to assemble it in a certain way, maybe even color it.
Yeah, I'm not following that. I don't see that as cosplay. To me, cosplay is dressing up as video game characters and fantasy characters and
I didn't
stuff.
know a better word.
Okay, so maybe we're just talking about a standard design, a standard device, and then maybe like a high end or particularly high quality design that somebody does. I think that's what you're talking about, is when somebody does a really nice finished kind of tailored design.
Exactly.
John?
But I'm thinking maybe there are 2 or more photos. The first one is the ISO, the second is exploded, and then you have as many, frankly, fun and interesting pictures as you can imagine.
That's part of the gallery.
It's going to vary a lot.
Not a requirement, but the point is, you don't have to require the real case in the cosplay. You just allow for it, and you put them in order so that the critical ones come first.
Right.
The
'Cause
real
you're going to have
case,
some like the Phoenix hand, you're going to have as many photos as you want. And then some others, you're going to have a very hard time finding any. So it's going to vary from design to design.
the required part is more concerned with the people that want to add devices and want to make devices. So for example, I would like to have the ISO view, the exploded, and a real case, have them as required when somebody wants to submit a new device.
Well, so there it sounds
Fair
like what
enough.
you're really talking about when we have somebody that submits a design, one of the not requirements, but one of the things that we look for is that that design has actually been made for a person. It's actually been tested on somebody before we put it into the catalog. And that sounds like that's what you're getting at there, that the photo is a way of sort of validating that it's been made for somebody and it's actually worked. Is that the idea then?
Yeah, and for example, that it's actually 3D printable. Just because
Yeah,
you have
okay.
3D files doesn't mean it's actually possible.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So my position is it now says optionally cosplay, etc.
All right.
Yeah. All right. So what do you need here? Let's, we have very limited, we got to wrap this up here. So how can we help with these questions?
I do need some, that's probably something that we can solve
Need a lot of-
separately.
So you need a lot
lorem-
of help with content. A lot of
Yeah.
help with content,
So
writing.
the summarization of licenses and so on. And any other feedback for the device list and the device template? Because we haven't spent
well,
that much time on my
No,
current
so
version
far I
of the
think we've,
device
we've
list.
been given feedback as we went here, but I think you and I, Alexander, should have a follow-up session and I can go through some things with you and show you where we can get some of that content that you need. And then I can also maybe take on some of that to help you with. But let's just coordinate a separate Zoom session to go through some of that together.
All right, that's perfect.
But wait, I think there were a couple of other questions there.
I don't think there is anything major.
Feedback. Oh, okay. And then need to review the town hall.
I
Okay.
got a quick question. I'll be quick
Yeah.
with it. Is it possible to, once you have it on the spreadsheet, to just basically have some kind of notification system to show the empty parts? I mean, it'd be really great if there was some way of motivating people to contribute.
Well, the
Those will
spreadsheet,
end up being,
yeah, so there's two ways that could happen. It could, if we work with MASV, they could end up flowing into the actual hub pages and be those empty parts will be highlighted graphically, et cetera. But
Okay.
short term, we could actually use the spreadsheet now that you mention it, Ben. So Alexander, if you fill in a Google Sheet and you get it structured with the data column headers and all that, and we start filling in the data we have, we can easily set up conditional formatting that'll just do a highlight on any of the empty cells and they'll all be colored to show where we need data filled in. So
Yeah, and
That'd
I
be
don't
an
think there
easy
is any
thing.
reason why we wouldn't be able to share the Google Sheets with the community.
Exactly.
Right.
We'll have a,
I mean-
you'll keep a master copy.
Right. And we could even set up a badge to motivate people to help you with this.
Yeah, I
Um,
like that.
Cool. Looks good.
Nice
well
work,
done.
Alexander.
Alexander.
Thank you.
Okay, folks, got to wrap. We ran a little long today, but it was well worthwhile. Thanks all and have a good week. See you next Friday.
See you at
Bye-bye.
45 minutes.
Yes. 45
At
minutes.
1 o'clock.
See you all then.
This
Yes.
Friday, 1 o'clock, 1 hour.
That's right. Bye all.